Hello. Howdy, everyone. Can the people in the room hear us okay? Just kidding. Just kidding. Hopefully y'all can hear us. Well, howdy, everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming here today. We're so happy to have you all out to the wilderness for our Concentrating on Concentrates class. For those who don't know, my name is Tanner Barris. I'm the president of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Been with the organization for about 3 years, going on 4 years now. Really excited to be able to start turning towards our adult use market that we're having come online here. Today's class is focusing on something that is of particular interest to me. I discovered concentrates way back in 2014, back when some guy I was buying weed from handed me some oil on a piece of parchment paper and said, "This is going to change your world." And I went, "Yeah, sure, I'll take it," and sort of moved on, but really has evolved and grown and become sort of my main method of consuming cannabis. What I'm really excited about today is that there was a lot legalized here in Minnesota. We're going to be talking about some of that today. But one of the things that was legalized is our own home processing. We all can be making high quality cannabis products at home, not just growing them. Yes, that's allowed, but also everything beyond that. And that's what today we'll be focusing on today. Now, we've got some people that really are experts in this. I told Steve I wanted to host this class, and we were like, cool. And I went, oh, shit, but we need people to teach it. Because this is something that I'm not an expert in, that Steve is not an expert in, but we have people here that are experts. So we're going to be introducing them in just a couple of minutes here, but sort of this is an agenda of what we got going on today. We're going to do a brief preview into what is processing and what are the laws around that. After we get all the fun stuff out of the way, we're really going to jump into what is processing. John from Minnesota Solventless is going to be sort of leading stuff on. And then afterwards, we're going to be hearing from Stefan with Cornell talking about pressing cannabis flower. So there's a lot of different types of rosin. We're going to be talking about what those are today. And then finally, we're going to end out with a Q&A panel, those two. Then, of course, Casey with Minnesota Grown CBD as well. These are really some people that, I'll be honest, make some of the best oil here in the state of Minnesota. So I'm really excited they're leading our class here today. And then, of course, the reason that you all are here is not just to hear us talk. That's, of course, exciting. But the reason that you're here is for our rosin lab that we'll be going to afterwards. So in about 45 minutes here, we'll be moving on to there. If you brought flower here today, of course, we encourage you to try pressing that. We've got the experts here that will help you through that. If you don't have flower, no sweat. We do have some CBD flower here, courtesy of Cornell, that you can get. So we're really looking forward to that. But first, should we talk about some laws? Okay, so I want to give my usual disclaimer that I am not a lawyer. So this is not me providing legal guidance to you. This is me explaining what the statute says around cannabis processing. There's still a lot that I think is waiting for guidance from the state of Minnesota's Office of Cannabis Management whenever they decide to start putting that out on how exactly this will look. But this is what we know as of today. So hopefully you guys got the memo. You're not supposed to have more than 2 ounces of the flower. We're not going to be weighing it. But in theory, that's the maximum that you're allowed to be having out in public. So that's sort of what we're going to be focusing on today. But concentrates, how much are you allowed to have around that? Well, the state of Minnesota put a limit on 8 grams of concentrate. If you are a new user of concentrates, that probably seems like a lot. If you are a regular user of concentrates, you probably know it's really not that much. And so we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the changes that we hope come up in Minnesota law in the future. But as of right now, that 8 grams is that maximum you can have. And then some people don't know this, but there is also a limit on the amount of edibles you can have. 800 milligrams of THC per edibles. You know, if you walk into a store, that's definitely a lot of product that you're buying. But if you're making edibles at home, it's really easy to get to that 800 limit and then above that. So if you're bringing products to other people, if you're making brownies and sharing them with your friends and family, a great thing to bring if you get together for the holidays. Just make sure you don't have more than 800 milligrams. And then finally, one of the things that we're super excited about is that, well, there is that 2 ounce limit when you have cannabis outside of your home. When you are at home, each adult is able to possess up to 2 pounds of cannabis. So that really increases the amount that you're able to process inside of your own home. Of course, if you're going somewhere else to a processing lab, you're unfortunately limited on that. But what's really exciting is if you and one other person live in your residence, you can be processing 4 pounds of cannabis at a single time. Now, I'm not going to talk about the concentrate that comes out from that because that's definitely more than 8 grams. But regardless, 2 pounds is sort of that maximum per adult. So yeah, like I said, a lot of changes that need to come up in laws because that 2 pounds will easily put you above 8 grams unless you're doing something really wrong. And then finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is that sale of cannabis is prohibited. sure this is something that we all know, but just if you're here today and you press something and you think, hey, this is really, really good, and you want to share it with someone, we're super fine with that. Please just don't be selling it. That's sort of the rule. And then one thing that I want to jump back up to is that thing on the top, volatile solvents prohibited. So we are not allowed to be blasting cannabis in our homes, meaning using like butane, ethanol, another volatile solvent that could potentially combust, could potentially explode, can be sort of dangerous. So state of Minnesota limited it on just that solventless methods. So you can use water, you can use heat, you can use pressure, can't use alcohol, can't use ethanol, can't use butane. So that's sort of the disclaimers that I wanted to give you all ahead of time. Yep, so that's the fun part. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, we're going to jump to what you all are actually here for, which is processing. So for that, I'm going to be handing it off to the people that know far more than I do, starting with our buddy John from Minnesota Solventless. So John, I'll pass this on over to you.
Thanks for coming out, everybody. We're excited to have you and hope you guys get to walk away with some really powerful knowledge, be able to take it back to your grows and really transform what you're going to do over the next few months. So thank you for coming out. What is processing? Basically, it's breaking down your existing cannabis flower into another form for ingestion or use, whether you're going to make edibles, decarb it in the oven just as flour, or if you're going to turn it into rosin or some sort of extract. It's basically breaking it down from the raw plant into another ingestible form. There's many ways to do it, from solvents to solventless. And sometimes, like I said, just throwing it back in the oven and doing a decarb on your flour. So it's pretty basic. There's not a bunch that goes into it, but as far as processing goes, it's pretty simple. All right, edibles. So we'll talk about in these times and temps, they work with either cannabis flower or when we extract into rosin. You'll be working with a little bit higher temp than maybe if we're going to go with a cart. So I just want to get that out there, kind of pay attention to the times, excuse me, the times and temps that are going to be on the screen up here. For edibles, I really like doing it a little bit faster. And so I crank up my temps a little bit higher. I do about 220, 235, and that's about a 45-minute decarb. What you're doing is taking the THCA from the extract. Whenever you press it out, you're really high in THCA, and you're converting that to D9 THC. That's the active ingredient. That's what's really going to get everybody their effects as far as the off the gate. And we can talk about full spectrum and everything later on, but you want to decarb it. Pay attention to the physical transformations that are going to occur. You're going to see it start as a nice waxy substance, and then you're going to see bubbles start to form. It's going to become very volatile inside there, and then it'll start to subside and calm down. Once you see no to minimal micro bubbles inside there, that's generally the best time to pull it. Anytime after that, you're not converting a ton, and you're going to start to boil or burn your rosin inside of the jar. So pay attention to it, stick around the oven, try to work in a fairly efficient method so that it's not causing any harm to your material. Once it's done bubbling, once it's calmed down, pull it out, let it cool off. That's a big thing a lot of people want to do, is just crack it open and smell it, because it's going to be very terpy. You'll get a real good sniff off it, I guess. But you want to let that cool all the way down, so you don't off gas all of those good terpenes inside there and let them go. You want that to go back into the edible. That really helps with your entourage effect and the real go.
You're describing decarbing. This is taking the fresh press and doing like a first operation on that?
Yeah, and it can also be done with just raw cannabis flower. So dried cannabis flower thrown on a baking tray in the oven. It's very similar. When we're talking about the bubbles and looking for transformation, we're going to talk specific into rosin. And it can be fresh press, it can be cured, first press, really high quality, or it can be third and fourth press, food grade material. Decarbing and having the edible route is very versatile, because if you have an accident from the grow or through the processing, you can save it in the food grade steps. So it's just